All right, Jesse on Fire. Welcome back. So we have been lacking on good stories for a while. And guess what? Now we've got one. Because Deontay Wilder just showed up at PFL randomly and started talking about how he's negotiating to fight Francis in PFL and then a boxing match. Look at that, dude. Look at how these things happen. Just like that, he goes from, how is Francis going to find an opponent, to, oh my God, Francis might have his opponent both in PFL and in boxing, and it's Deontay Wilder, okay? So if you guys missed that, we are going to watch that. That is one of the things we're going to do. And then also, I'm going to show you something. You know what? I'm going to start with that. I'm going to make you guys sit through this because it was that mind-blowing to me. So you're going to have to sit through this really quick at the beginning of this, and then you can watch the Deontay Wilder stuff. But I'm going to show you how I started this channel because it is extraordinarily relevant to this particular story. If you already know where this is going, then good for you. But if you either way, we're going to go over it because I had I don't even know how to even describe it. Am I in a simulation? I don't know. Are you? The evidence would certainly appear to be that I'm in a simulation. What are you talking about? We're going to go over that in a second. So, yeah. Francis, if he pulls this off, if Francis's team pulls this off, PFL pulls this off, game changer. Game changer, game changer. And Deontay Wilder is officially stating his intentions to try to make this happen. So if you don't mind subscribing to the channel, please do that super quick. I will love you guys forever for that, you know, forever. All I ask is that you subscribe to the channel if you're going to watch my content. I work really, really hard. I ask nothing else, just that. Also, if you don't mind liking the video, that would be incredible. To all of my subscribers, like the video. I appreciate it. It tells the algorithm to suggest it. And let's rock and roll. All right. So here's where we're going to start. Okay. Here's where we're going to start. So you can see this video right here is 3 years old. The actual date is January 11th, 2020. I started my channel in April 2020, 3 months after this. And this is it, the direct result of this right here. And you'll see exactly why this is relevant in a second. Watch this.
We can talk about all we want. He's not going to do it. Those two are not going to fight. But I see what you did there. And I like the booking.
Okay, I've got a fun question. So if you could see any fight between any two current fighters in any sport under any set of rules, what is that dream matchup that you would put together? I'm going to go ahead and say mine is Francis Ngannou versus Deontay Wilder in boxing with MMA gloves. What's yours?
Okay.
All right. So spoiler, his answer was GSP against Conor McGregor in MMA. That was January 2020. So that is the genesis of this channel. Okay. He put me on fan questions, and 3 months later, after sending him 10,000 more of them, he put another one on too. I started this channel, and then thus all else is history. Yesterday, I was literally telling Chael, my favorite thing about the success of this channel is bullshitting with you off the record about the fight business. I said that to Chael yesterday. 3 hours later, okay, Deontay Wilder is at PFL talking about negotiating to fight Francis Ngannou. And today, I met a gentleman who wants to produce Chael and I in a show together. Tell me I'm not in a simulation. Tell me that. Tell me I am not in a simulation, because I don't. My wife never ages, you know? Like, my wife gets better looking as she gets. It's not really how it goes, dude. I have to be in a simulation. Either that, or I'm doing the same thing that the Conor McGregor thing, where he just like imagines what he wants his life to be. Anyway, I'm incredibly grateful to you guys. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And it was a very poignant kind of, 24 hours for me. Anyway, all right. So let's watch Deontay Wilder, because obviously this would be an epic game changer because of, okay, let's watch it first.
And what is not, and it's so many different things in the fight game. This business is I always say is one of the most difficult business around, the fight business, because it's unstructured. You know what I mean? It's so many different directions that can go with business as well. But we got
okay. So first of all, he's at PFL. Okay, he's not talking about fighting PFL on Twitter, right? He's at the PFL right now, talking about fighting in the PFL. Okay? People say things all the time, right? They go on Twitter, oh, I want to fight this guy. I want to fight that guy. They say things in interviews. La, 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 la. He's at PFL, talking to the PFL people about fighting Francis Ngannou in PFL shortly. Now, the reason I paused it right there is I wanted to tell you, I recently got into managing fighters, right? And I can tell you, like basically what does that entail? You try to get brands, whatever, but getting them fights. I can tell you in my limited experience already, getting guys fights is not easy, okay? There's so much stuff that needs to come together. It's unbelievable. It's like every single event, the UFC has this well-oiled, structured machine that just cranks out fights. Like being in the UFC, I can understand exactly what the allure of that is because it just takes all of that out of it. You're just like talking to you. You're like, hey, when am I going to fight? When am I going to fight? When am I going to fight? And they just like, they'll match you up with someone. They got a bunch of fighters and they get to just do it. You get outside the UFC, it is not that simple, dude. It's just really not that simple. Boxing, I can't even imagine. Well, actually, that is exactly what I've been trying to do. But like, the lack of structure makes it very challenging. So I only bring that up to just state that even though Deontay is stating, yeah, I want to do this with Francis. He's straight up saying, I want to do this with Francis. I want to do a 2-fight thing, this and this. Until it's actually done, you can't bank on it, right? But nonetheless.
We narrowing down, and people should see me back in maybe August, no later than September.
Okay, I know you have options. But let me give you another one, because you're talking about how unstructured that boxing world is.
Bring them to me.
Here in the PFL.
Come on now. I know what you're...
In the only league format of the sport of mixed martial arts, you know your schedule for the year.
Yeah.
We need some fresh heavyweight talent. You got the reach advantage on a lot of these guys. When can we see Deontay Wilder maybe making a crossover in mixed martial arts?
I mean, that's a good question. I've thought about this many times. Even with Ngannou, we was talking about getting together. I even offer, you always see the MMA guys crossing over, but you never see the fighters, the boxers crossing over. So I said, I wanted to make it more interesting for the fans and just the whole comeback family as in a whole, I said, well, how about you come to my backyard, and after we handle business, I can come to yours and cross over. And I really meant it, so things are still up in the air, but I have seen myself on this side of the field. People will be very impressed of what I can do and my ability.
I believe that.
Your ground game, I got a place for you. I got a place for you.
I just shuddered a little bit thinking about this guy.
Wait, no, you don't, Randy Couture. You don't have a place for him because Francis is there. You're the only person that doesn't have a place for Deontay Wilder. That's you know what I mean? Extreme Couture is where Francis trains. That's literally the only place that he can't go train for this fight.
4 rounds gloves on.
Goodness.
I mean, that's ridiculous. So, how long have you been watching mixed martial arts, and do you appreciate kind of what these guys do? It's obviously a little different than boxing, right?
Almost, it's different, but it's combat. What I mean?
Listen, again, I just want to ask you guys a question. What is he doing there if this is not something that is if those two parties are not talking, right? I know they're talking, but if they're not talking, what do you think he's doing there, dude? How does he end up at PFL? How does Deontay Wilder end up at a PFL show? Okay. Now from here, it's just all fluff. You guys can go watch that on your own if you want. But here's the deal. Think about this is, not to pull the curtain back too much, but bottom line, if you're Deontay Wilder and you want to go see a mixed martial arts fight, right? And you're like, oh, what are we doing this weekend? I want to go to a cage fight. Do you go to the PFL or do you go to UFC if you're not talking to one of them, right? Of course, you go to the UFC. So him being at PFL is a clear and present, indicator. He's talking to them, dude. This is not random. It's not like they just saw him in the crowd and they were like, hey, Deontay, do you want to say a few words about your career? And he's like, oh, man, I never miss an opportunity to talk into a camera. Okay? This is happening. This is real. This is in the works. This is happening. Now, you can never, this is the thing, you can never commit to it, especially a guy coming from boxing. I cannot stress this enough, right? In UFC, when they're trying to set a fight up, you can really, you could be a little bit more, I I don't know, like you could be a little bit more confident than how he sounds. You know, I meant it. I wanted to do, you know, you could be more confident about, when you're coming from boxing. Just look at what you've seen publicly in the Tyson Fury saga in the last few months. He was fighting Dillian White, right? Everyone wanted that fight. Somehow it doesn't happen. He's fighting Ruiz. Everyone wants that fight, or actually no one wants that fight, but whatever. Like it's happening in July. No, it's not. It's not happening actually. And you know what I mean? Like they go and then they fall out. They go and then they fall out. They go and then they fall out. So Deontay Wilder, that's the world he comes from, right? And so when you're talking to an organization about fighting their heavyweight champion, and you're talking about doing a really complicated deal where he's going to fight in boxing and then go and fight in the cage, you're not going to get a more confident, you know, because if I didn't know what I know about the fight business, I would have listened to that and been like, oh, they're just talking hypotheticals. Nah. Okay. No. Right. Like, they're talking hypotheticals, but they're talking about hypotheticals that they are actively negotiating, right? Straight up. And the other thing is, it's Deontay Wilder, dude. Okay? Do you think this is an easy deal to put together? Like, you think it's easy to put together a deal for... He's literally fielding offers for $30 million to fight, $25 million to fight. Supposedly, this one at the end of the year with the Saudis is like, I don't even know, outlandish money. So, yeah, he's got, like you said, he's got options. But he really he said straight up, he wants to do it. He's like serious. And he's like, he wants to cross over. He wants to do MMA. Now, he said, I think people will be surprised by what I can do in MMA. I will not be surprised, actually. I won't be surprised. Because they're going to put him against a guy who is a primary striker, obviously. You're not going to put him against, like, you know, Fabricio Verdum or something. You know what I mean? And so... they're going to give him the opportunity to showcase his skills on his feet in MMA gloves. And the thing is, if you're against a primary striker and when they start getting touched, they're going to shoot for sure, assuming that they're awake, which is unlikely, you know, if it's Deontay Wilder. But like, you can train takedown defense pretty, you know, I mean, you don't, like, it's not like he's going to get fantastic at it, but he's not going to be against an elite grappler because they'd be crazy to put him against an elite grappler. I mean, against Francis, he's got problems, you know. Against Francis, he's got problems. But bottom line, dude, this guy has nuclear power. He breathes on you, you're unconscious. You know what I mean? He breathes on you, you're unconscious. And the Francis matchup, Francis is going to want to stand with him. Now, if they box first, depending on how that goes, obviously that would affect the MMA fight. But like, this, I mean, let's fucking go, man. I asked for this. I mean, I asked for both fights in one, you know. Why don't you guys box in MMA gloves? And by the way, anyone who ever doubted that when I was like the Tyson Fury and Francis Ngannou boxing match in MMA gloves, if you ever doubted that was my idea, hopefully that video put that to bed, since you know, Markel's my dude. I love that guy. And I definitely put that in his ear, 100%. So, yeah, I mean, please let this happen, man. Please let this happen. You know what I got to do? I got to take this and then like put like, you know, like put a piece of tape over this and then put PFL, you know, just to keep it like current or whatnot. Because I'll tell you this, man. Like, so I've talked extensively, like Francis in BKFC. I love it, dude. I love it. This is a long. Everything's a long shot, but this looks promising. Francis in BKFC. I can't. Oh my God, that would be utterly insane, dude. Okay, because I do think there are limited options for things Francis can do that will be successful. You know, like they need to be successful right out of the gate. And I think you are limited to BKFC versus Belcher or versus Rothwell or whatever. That's successful because he's in fucking bare knuckles. Or if he fights Deontay Wilder, that's a fucking wrap, son. That is a wrap, son. Obviously, you know. But you guys don't need me to tell you that, dude. If he fights Deontay Wilder, it's a fucking wrap, son. So yeah, that's basically what we got on this. Trying to think of what else I could talk about today, since this is probably the only video I'm going to do. So yeah, I had real great feedback yesterday I told wait, hang on. George Masvidal, never personal with Leon Edwards, but Colby Covington, we will never be cool. Damn, Masvidal's still mad at Colby. Anyway, I told some stupid fight story yesterday on my video, and I got a bunch of emails. They were like, dude, you need to tell those stories all the time. I love them. I love them. The only reason I don't the thing where I feel self-conscious telling these is because I don't want to sound like I'm telling you guys stories about street fights to make it sound like I'm like tough, right? Like, because that's not like, the stories are just good because it's like something like I don't know, it's like something like exciting that happened. Okay, winning street fights does not make you tough. Starching a guy in a street fight does not make you tough. Like, you could go starch a guy in a street fight, walk into any gym where someone's been training for 6 months and they'll beat the living shit out of you if you have no training. So that is not the purpose of the stories. You know what? Actually, I have a story for you guys. I have a story for you guys where it definitely won't sound tough because I didn't actually get in a fight. But this one, I told one time and it got demonetized. There's the first video I ever did that got demonetized. I took it down. So I'll tell you guys this story, and it has to do with drugs and it actually did have to do with a fight. But so yeah, I'll just tell you. So I was 1 year out of college, right? So I was 1 year out of college. I was living in Sacramento. And this year I lived with this dude that I was friends with my last year in college, but we weren't like, we were like good buddies, but he's not like one of my closest buddies. And we ended up living together in Sacramento, me, him, and another guy. Now, this guy is currently deceased from a fentanyl overdose. He always had a raging drug problem, but he was always like very successful, but had a raging drug problem. So when I lived with him, that was a common occurrence, there was always stuff around, right? So a buddy of ours came into town. We were having this huge party. We invited literally everybody that we knew from Chico that was still kind of like in the area. We were having 1 million people over. And my buddy brought over, I don't want to say it because I don't want to Emily, like not Emily, her friend Ollie, right? So a huge bag of this, just the powder, right? So at the time, I had never done pure, Raleigh, right? I'd never done it before. I had always taken like pressed pills when I was in college, whatever. So one thing that's very bizarre for me is like things like that always take a really long time to metabolize in my body versus other people. So they take things and then like 30 minutes later, they're like, oh my God, I'm having the best time. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm not. And it would literally hit me an hour and a half after that. It would take 2 hours for things to hit, right? So this was the first time I had ever done, so I didn't know how much to take, right? Like people suggested how much to take. I did that. It had been literally 2 hours, right? And it hadn't hit at all. So I did it again, right? 10 minutes later, the first one hit me. Oh my God, dude. I had taken too much out of the gate, right? Like I'd taken too much out of the gate. Like it was too much. And right then I realized, I was like, I just doubled this. Like I'm talking 10 minutes before this, I just doubled this. Whenever this hits, it's a curtain call for me. I don't know what's going to happen. I honestly, I don't know what's going to happen. So what ended up happening, let me actually rewind. So who was there? It's all my friends and then this girl that I was dating. Those of you who are familiar with the story about where I had to hide in the closet when this girl's dude kicked the door in, this is that girl. But at the beginning of our relationship, right? So like this is kind of we had just kind of started making it official, whatever. So she's there and then all of our friends. So when the second part hit, I can't, it's like, it's the only time in my life where like my brain went into a place where I was having a conversation. This is right when I knew that the second part had hit, is I was out front talking to this girl that I knew from college. And I was like, so what are you doing? Like, so what are you up to right now? Whatever. And she's like, I'm in I'm in Santa Barbara. I just opened this store. I did, and I heard her and I was like, and I was like, oh my God, this is too much. And then, so right after she was done talking, I'm like, so like, what are you up to right now? Literally right after she just told me all that. And then I realized, and I looked at her and she looked at me in the face, just like, wait, what? And I was like, I'm like, I just asked you that, didn't I? And she's like, yeah. And I was like, oh, she's like, are you all right? And then I just panicked, dude. People were coming up. They were talking to me. I couldn't understand them. Like I couldn't understand what they were saying. I was like, so then the girl, Amberly was like, she came up, she's like, dude, are you all right? Like, she, you know, like I'd known her for a long time. She never, like, I handle that kind, like I handle substances really, really well. So like this was very out of character. And I was like, I don't know, man. I'm like, I honestly, I don't know. And so everyone went to this club and I hung back, right? I was like, I'll meet you guys there. And so I just hung back. Everybody left. I waited like an hour and a half. And then I was like, all right, I think I'm all right, you know? So I go to this club, you know, still fucking zapped out of my gourd, right? Like the most too much, dude, right? But I've got all my friends that are there. My girl, I told her, I was like, go. And I like had my friends, I'm like, take care of her. Jesus, if I would have known what a whore she was, if I wouldn't have gone, she probably would have been like, take care of me. You heard what he said. Take care of me. So anyway, I get to the club and, you know, we're there. I don't even really remember much from like the actual experience of the club, but I got through it, you know, and I was like, all right, you know, like I'm pretty much all right. So I was wearing a blue dress shirt, jeans, or I don't know, but I was wearing blue snakeskin shoes. Okay. I don't know what the fuck I was doing. All right. But I didn't look like a guy you'd need to be concerned about. Right. And I also was walking around with the body language of a person who took too much, you know, like like people can kind of look at a person and be like, oh, is this an imposing threat that I need to be concerned about? Or is this guy nothing? Right. So as much as I'm capable of being nothing, that's exactly what I look like that night. Right. So I'm walking out with her. I got my buddy Scott in front of me, my buddy Dan, that guy that I lived with, who also was a Gold Gloves boxer, notable. Scott he's a very tough guy, like a really, really tough guy. And back then he used to fight all the time. So he's with his girl, I'm with Amberly, and Dan is right behind us. And so we're walking out and like, you know, it's like the club is closed, right? So like everybody's trying to file out and it's like, you're jammed, right? Like you can't like it's a traffic jam, right? Like people are slowly filtering out. And there's these three guys that are right next to us, kind of jammed right next to us. And I'm not paying attention to it. And one of them, like literally who's right next to me, just started laughing, like laughing in my face, like super antagonistic, just like laughing. And we were like, and like was doing it on purpose. We were like, I don't get it. And like, I was still so like, ooh. And Dan to the guy, he's like, what are you laughing at? And the guy goes, oh, I just think it's hilarious that a spiky haired maggot like this guy could pull a bitch out of here. Cause I was walking out with Amberly. And dude, never in my entire life had anybody challenged me like that. Never. Not once. Not like that. Like where a person's right there and threw out like just a direct like punch me or else you're a pussy thing. Like never. Not once in my entire life. And I can't even explain this to you, dude. It was like my brain just went zip, and I was just 100% dead sober instantly. And I was like, I couldn't believe it. He's literally right there. Like there's nowhere for either of us to go. And when he said like Dan and he's like this, like he's wearing like a hooded sweatshirt. So keep in mind, we're at a club where I'm wearing a dress shirt with snakeskin shoes. Like that's what kind of joints. I was way more like, appropriately dressed than this fucking idiot who's in a hoodie. Okay. Like I don't even know how the fuck he got in there. So he's like a fake gangster guy or maybe a real gangster, you know, irrelevant. So I looked at him and I literally just went, I had a look on my face like, I don't know, a shark, you know, like where I was like, and at this point, this is when I fought all the time, like all the time. And I was totally undefeated. In my brain, there's not a person on earth that was any kind of like violent problem for me at all then. I was woefully ignorant, right? There's a lot of people that have beat the shit out of me, but I didn't know that, right? So I literally looked at this guy like in my, it's like, you know, at the time, it's like one of those things where you're like, man, I wish somebody would, you know? It's like you go around thinking that you're like, oh, dude, I wish someone would press me like that. And so I literally looked at him like he was a filet mignon. Like I looked at him and I just, my whole demeanor completely changed. And then I started laughing. He's like, what are you laughing at? I'm like, I think it's hilarious that you picked me and thought I'm the guy that won't knock you the fuck out in front of all these people. And you could just tell like his entire, like literally he just went from like to like, is like, you know. And so he turned around to his buddies kind of like, oh, check this guy out. And so I got right into his ear. Literally, I was this close to his ear and I was like, bitch, you have 50 fucking pounds on me. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm forgetting something. So the reason I did this is because as soon as he did it, I quickly scanned the room and there was bouncer. They were super close, right? So I'm like, if I starch this guy, I'm going to jail, right? Like just on auto, just instantly. If I starch him, I'm going to jail. So I got into his ear because I was intentionally trying to bait him into throwing a punch at me, and I was like, "Bitch, you got 50 fucking pounds on me. Why don't you do something?" And the guy's all, "Oh, all right." And he turned around like he was going to say something to his buddies. I knew he was going to fucking try to sucker punch me. And so he turned to try to punch me, and I slipped it. He must have fucking missed me by this much. Like, I intentionally was trying to get him to throw a punch at me, and I slipped it. He missed. Dan blitzed him. He falls. Scott, my buddy, went up, kicked him in the teeth, knocked his teeth out. Fight over, right? That everybody's fucking hog-tied. His friends didn't do shit. They like grabbed all of us and like were dragging us all out. This fucking idiot ends up getting arrested, right? So like he ends up like the bouncers all come up, like they trying to sort everything out, and they're like, "That guy did it." They're like, "That guy," and you know his face, like he's all fucked up, dude. He looked terrible. He got hit from the side, kicked in the teeth. His face is bloody. Everything unscathed, and the bouncers are all, "That guy did it. That guy." And so the cops are cuffing him, putting him on the fucking car. They're like, "All right, you guys are good to go." And so we walked right by him with our girls still, and we walked to a cab while he was getting arrested. We're like, "Hey, have a good night, bud." Then we got into the cab, went to a strip club, the end. So, yeah. Dan had my back, dude. Dan had my back. These guys were fucking big, too. But nonetheless, there's another story for you. Hopefully I was able to tell that story without getting demonetized. I think I was much more descriptive with the ollie part of it. I think that's why I got demonetized before. Anyway, that's what we got. I love you guys. Tell your friends. Subscribe to the channel. Peace.